So, when Jason was diagnosed, we were extremely private. Jason's a very private person anyways when it comes to health. And so we did what we could to respect that. I think that as things were progressing, my family does not really know much about cancer diagnoses. It's not very prevalent in our family. And so the dynamics between Jason and me and my family members, I think, is much different than his relationship and my relationship with his family members because they have that medical knowledge. And I think that at times my family members were hurt because they didn't feel like that they knew what was going on. They also didn't feel comfortable asking those questions to say, hey, what's going on? How's Jason doing? So at the beginning they asked, and then they just stopped because he wasn't really communicating much and didn't want to. I think now that 3 years have passed, it's better, and we do share things. Like when he has an appointment, I'll say, hey, this is what happened, or whatever the case is. But he was very resistant to getting support and letting them in. I think I kind of had to play that middleman of like, okay, so what am I, preserving the relationship that I have with my family, or am I protecting my husband's wishes to say, hey, I'm not sharing anything because they don't, because he doesn't want them to know, or he's not comfortable having them have that information. On the other side of things, I also think that, some things had occurred early on in Jason's cancer journey where information was shared that should never have been shared without his permission, and from like a medical perspective. And so I think that that really is where things started in terms of that privateness. I think on his side of the family, some of those things occurred, and I think that, they wanted to very much be a part of things, and Jason felt comfortable doing that. I, on the other hand, was like, well, now I'm navigating, different caregivers on a different level, and I'm still also pregnant. And, when Emma was born, navigating through some of that stuff too. And I think that, I learned that I had to kind of let things go a little bit, because I wasn't just protecting, Jason, but I was also caring for me during pregnancy and postpartum, and as well as being the sole provider of food for our daughter. So, I had to really think about what's important, and what am I letting go? What am I letting bother me? And what am I just going to say, hey, you know what, like, just let's move on to something else. And I think that the dynamics have just been different. I understand, Jason's parents are his parents, and they love him, and they care for him, and they only want him to be happy and healthy. And I think that some of those challenges and dynamic changes were out of love, and not necessarily meant to be putting me in a situation that was uncomfortable, or creating just additional dynamics that maybe didn't need to be there circumstantially. But at the same time, I think that throughout the process and learning kind of how to navigate, or to the best of our abilities, really both sides of things, which were kind of polar opposites, we learned a little bit more about, okay, so what really truly are our boundaries? When are we willing to let go a little bit? When are we willing to share things? What does that look like? And really trying to think through some of that stuff, so that we could all kind of have a dynamic that works together with both sides of the family. And I think too, throughout the process, my family members and his family members did, communicate a little bit more. And not that they didn't before, but communicating in a different way, and really advocating, and being a support for me when I needed it too. And I think sometimes that's that forgotten about piece. When you think about family dynamics, in treatment and support, a lot of times it's all about, well, the patient. What about the patient? But you think about that other dynamic of, well, but what does the caregiver need? what does that family member need? Or if there's more than one family member, what do they need? What can others do to kind of assist during that to make things a little bit easier? And I think too, from a dynamics perspective, you know, Jason and I didn't really have a chance to talk it out before some of these things happened. And so I think that we unfortunately were in a boat of reacting. And I think some of our reactions kind of caused different dynamics, unfortunately, with family members too, because we didn't know how to react. I don't really know that anyone knows how to react until you're faced with a situation where you're kind of going on gut impulses or reactions sometimes.